Hello everyone, welcome to AWS Learning Series. In this series, we'll talk about AWS Lambda. So before we talk about Lambda, let's take a quick recap. What is a code? The developer always write a code to perform certain things. So functions or methods is a piece of code which performs given or predefined task in any language, C, Node, Python, etc. Somebody calls these functions and then they take some actions and it provides a response. So when that code becomes an application and ready to be deployed, it gets deployed into a server which contains an operating system, which contains a runtime to execute that code. Now, what is a Lambda function? A Lambda function is a piece of code which performs a task. Amazon deploys it for you in the existing compute, so you don't have to worry about the servers or operating system or what is the runtime. Or those things are already taken care for you. Then, once you have these two things, this code can be plugged in into different services or integrations, and now your service is ready to talk to the world. So now with Lambda, you have all those servers, operating system, everything else goes away, and your Lambda function is ready to talk to the world. Now, let's have a demo about Lambda. I'm logged into my AWS console. If you don't have AWS account, I will recommend you first create AWS account. It is free for 1 year. From here, we'll go to Lambda. I already have one function here, but what we are going to do, we are going to start from scratch. So you click on the top right, create function. We have few options here. How do you want to start? We can either start from scratch, or we can use any existing blueprint, or they already have a repo. You can extract the existing repo and then customize that. But for the purpose of this demo, to clarify the concepts, we'll start from scratch. I will give it a name, my first Lambda function. You can choose the language in which you want to write the logic in the Lambda. They support .NET Core, also Go, Java, Python, Ruby, and many other languages, but we will use Node.js in this demo to start that. Permissions, you can leave it blank for now and click on create function. So it is building the function. How we call this function, or how do we connect this function with the API or other service, that is the next part. For now, we are just going to focus that how that piece of code actually works and how can we test that. So now we got our first brand new Lambda function. If you look at the screen, you always get this ARN. This is a unique identifier number for any of the AWS object. You create either Lambda or EC2, S3 bucket, or any other service which you create, you always get an ARN number which can uniquely identify what kind of services you are using. So if you scroll down, the very important thing to note down here is this function. So this is the actual piece of code which we can write directly into the production, and we can test it before we connect it with either the API or Alexa or any of the other service. The entry point for this Lambda function is exports.handler. It is connected with the Lambda framework, which we don't need to worry about. The input parameters provided by the event, and the function returns the response. It could be any object. So our Lambda function is ready. Now we can add as much complexity as we want to this one. We will test the Lambda. We will create a test method which will call that Lambda. If we want to pass the parameters, they will be passed in the form of an object, and Lambda will do whatever calculation it has to do, and then it will return an object in the form of response. To create a new test method, we need to go on the top right section and click on configure test events. It will give you two options. Either you can create a new test method or you can edit the existing test methods. We didn't create any, so that option is disabled for us. But I can use the templates, pre created templates of code for different kind of predefined test methods also. But we are not going to use any of them right now. So I'm going to write my event name, my first test method. So this will be the name of the test method. We can create as many test methods as we want. Now a test method will take an object and it will pass to the Lambda function when it will call that function. So that object is going to be a JSON object, and we can define any JSON object here that will be passed as the input parameters to the Lambda functions. We are not going to pass anything right now. I'm going to keep it blank and click on create. So our first test method got created, and we can create more like we spoke before. So now let's test it. We select that and click on test. It got executed. We can see the results here, and we can also see them here. You got the response right here. Status 200, body hello from Lambda. This is the response we got from the function because we are returning that response here. Return space response. Before that, if we look at the code, we are building a response. So a response is nothing more than a JSON object which contains two properties, status code or the body. And it could be anything. It doesn't has to be like that. It depends based upon how we are using that code. And soon we will change that also. Request ID. This is a unique ID given to the request when we call any Lambda function. For example, now we called this Lambda function just for the testing purpose. We got this request ID, but later on when you connect this function with any other functionality, so different applications will be calling this function to get their things done, we can track different request IDs to do the logging or exception or any many other reasons also. And below that we see the log. So it actually started with that request ID. So this is the request ID. You see that this is matching with this request ID and end. So now this request ended. This is how much duration it took. It took 123.73 milliseconds to execute that piece of code, and we can be billed only for 200 milliseconds. There are millions of requests free every month on the Lambda, so it is almost free to write the code directly on the Lambda. And here it says how much memory has been used for this Lambda function. So now let's add some more functionality to Lambda and understand how can it interact with the input parameters and can return more information. Event is the predefined parameter which accept all the input things. Let's assume that event will be bringing me the object like this, which will have name and address. So, and I will manipulate some of the data and return back the response. So I will write address event dot name plus event dot address. Your address is now we did some manipulation with the incoming data, and now we want to return this processed data back in the form of response. So I can either add another property which will take that data back to the method. So let me save it and let's test it. So let's see what is the result we got. We got another JSON property address which contains your address is undefined because the reason is our method did not pass those properties here. So now if we update our test method, or this can be another use case that which brings that data. So we pass two more properties in name, and the another property we pass, we update that method. So our now test method contains the input object which will be passed to this lambda function when we click on the test. I clicked on the test, and now this is going to be a new request ID, and my results contains your address is Satinder Sidhu. Learning is so much fun because they got processed here and they got returned as a part of this one. Thank you everyone for watching AWS Learning Series. I will see you in the next video where we will integrate API gateways with the Lambda functions and make more RESTful APIs. Bye.